In the winter of 1939, the almighty Red Army of the Soviet Union did not fear Finnish generals or their divisions. They feared a whisper, a chilling legend that spread like gangrene through the frozen trenches. They called it Valkoinen Kuolema, the White Death. On the Kola River front, Soviet soldiers did not die in pitched battles. They simply fell, one by one silently, victims of a single shot that seemed to be born of the frigid air itself. There was no sound, no muzzle flash, only a small hole in a dark green uniform and one less man. They did not feel they were fighting an army. They felt they were being hunted by a ghost. The White Death was not a supernatural force, but its lethality was so incomprehensible that it might as well have been. It was a single man, a small farmer from a border region, who had merged with the winter landscape to become its apex predator. His hunting ground was the snowy forests of his homeland, and his prey was the world's largest invading army. His effectiveness was so terrifying, and his presence so invisible, that he transcended reality to become a living myth, a horror story told in hushed tones by terrified soldiers to explain why their comrades vanished without a trace, as if swallowed by the snow itself. Simo Häyhä became the deadliest sniper in history, not because he was a soldier who used winter as a weapon, but because he was winter embodied in a man. His incredible kill count came not from superior technology. He despised telescopic sights, but from an almost supernatural fusion with his environment. Employing the infinite patience of a predator, ingenious hunting techniques honed over years, and an almost mystical knowledge of the frozen forest, he transformed Finland's greatest weakness, its brutal climate, into its greatest ally. He was there to annihilate an enemy that, with its arrogance and inadequate equipment, simply did not belong in that sacred, frozen place. The hero of this story is an anti-hero Perry. Excellence, Simo Häyhä. He is not an imposing officer or a super soldier. He is a short farmer, a quiet and modest man who before the war was known for his skills as a hunter and competitive marksman. His emotional state on the battlefield is one of glacial calm, an absolute focus devoid of hatred or fury. He is not driven by ideology, but by a simple, unshakable sense of duty, to protect his home. For him, the Soviet invasion is not a geopolitical event. It is as simple as finding a bear on his farm. It is an intruder that must be driven out, and he is the man who knows how to do it, one shot at a time. His army is himself, a single man. His equipment is equally modest and pragmatic. His primary weapon is his own Finnish-made Mosin Nagant M2830 rifle, a weapon he knows as intimately as a farmer knows his plow. Crucially, he insists on using only the rifle's iron sights without any optics. For closer encounters, he carries a Suomi KP-31 submachine gun, a formidable weapon in its own right. His motivation is the purest and most powerful there is: the defense of his homeland, Finland, from a massive, unprovoked invasion by Stalin's Soviet Union. He does not fight for glory. He fights for his nation's survival. Facing this lone hunter is an industrial giant, the Soviet Red Army. It is a force of millions of men, thousands of tanks and aircraft, designed for large-scale mechanized warfare. However, this colossus has an Achilles heel. After Stalin's brutal purges, its most experienced officers have been executed, replaced by men who are loyal but incompetent. They operate with a toxic mix of ideological arrogance, believing in their inevitable proletarian victory, and a paralyzing fear of their own political commissars. They are a giant hammer sent to crack a nut, not realizing the nut is made of hardened steel. The Red Army's fatal weakness is its complete ineptitude for winter warfare. They are a force designed for the vast plains of Europe, not the Arctic. Forests and frozen lakes of Finland. Their dark olive-green uniforms make them perfect targets against the snowy landscape. Their tanks and trucks get bogged down on non-existent forest roads. They have no training, no equipment, and no doctrine for fighting in temperatures that reach 40 degrees below zero. They fatally underestimate not only the determination of the Finns, the famous Sisu, but the most relentless enemy of all, General Winter himself. The battlefield is the true protagonist, and Simo Häyhä's main ally. It is the frozen forests of Karelia, a land of almost perpetual darkness during the winter months, specifically around the Kola River, where temperatures regularly drop to 20 and even 40 degrees below zero. The deep snow, often waist-high, muffles sound, making it nearly impossible to locate the origin of a shot, and severely restricts the movement of large Soviet troop formations. For the invaders, this landscape is a white hell, a frozen labyrinth that demoralizes, freezes, and slowly kills them. For Simo, it is home. It is here that Simo applies his genius, a hunting methodology perfected over a lifetime and adapted to the most dangerous prey of all, man. His tactics are brutally simple, incredibly disciplined, and diabolically effective. He dresses entirely in white, often using a simple bedsheet for camouflage. To prevent the vapor from his breath from revealing his position in the frigid air, he fills his mouth with snow. He despises telescopic sights because the sun can reflect off the lens and because they tend to fog up or freeze, becoming useless. And most importantly, he prepares each firing position with the care of a craftsman, compacting the snow in front of his rifle so that the muzzle blast does not kick up a telltale cloud. To see how these techniques turn a single man into a strategic force and to witness the greatest hunt in history, subscribe to our channel and activate notifications, because the White Death is about to begin taking his toll. In the first days of the Winter War, on the Kola River front, a terrifying pattern begins to emerge. Soviet soldiers, exposed and clumsy in their thick, dark uniforms, begin to fall in alarming numbers. They do not die in major engagements, but in moments of calm. An officer studying a map, a runner dashing between positions, a soldier peering over a trench. The cause is always the same: a single, precise, lethal shot that seems to come from nowhere. Within days, the death toll attributed to this invisible marksman climbs into the dozens. Panic begins to spread. The legend of the White Death is born. The fear of this phantom sniper becomes more demoralizing than artillery fire. It is a psychological terror that corrodes the Red Army's morale. Soldiers refuse to leave their shelters. Officers, Simo's preferred targets, become afraid to give orders. Unit cohesion disintegrates. A single man with an old-fashioned rifle is paralyzing entire regiments. The name Valkoinen Kuolema is whispered with dread in the Soviet trenches. Simo's presence is so devastating that he becomes a priority target for the entire front sector. Frustrated by the effectiveness of a single man, the Soviet High Command decides to hunt the hunter. They dispatch their own counter-sniper teams, men trained and equipped with the best scoped rifles the Soviet Union can provide. Their sole mission is to find and eliminate the White Death, but they are entering Simo's game on his turf and by his rules. One by one, Simo outmaneuvers them. He uses his intimate knowledge of the terrain, his infinite patience, and his hunter's cunning to lure them into traps, outflank them, and eliminate them. Every elite Soviet sniper who falls victim to Simo only serves to enhance his myth and deepen the terror. Desperate and unable to locate this specter by conventional means, the Soviets resort to the only tactic they know: brute force. They begin to indiscriminately bombard with heavy artillery and mortars any position where they suspect Simo might be hiding. They level entire sections of the forest, turning the snowy landscape into a hell of craters and shattered trees. Simo, using his instinct to anticipate the bombardments and constantly move, survives barrages that would have annihilated entire companies. His apparent invulnerability only increases the psychological terror he wields over the enemy. It seems that not even steel can touch him. For nearly 100 days, in the most brutal conditions imaginable, Simo Haiha wages his personal war. He hunts during the few hours of daylight the Arctic winter offers, and then returns to his own lines, often with only a few biscuits and a little sugar to sustain him. His kill count continues to climb, surpassing 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, a number that seems impossible, superhuman. He becomes the living symbol of Finnish resistance, the embodiment of Sisu. On March 6, 1940, after nearly 100 days of relentless hunting, Simo's luck finally seems to run out. During a Soviet counterattack, an enemy soldier fires a blind burst towards the Finnish positions. A single bullet, an explosive round, finds its mark. The projectile hits Simo in the left side of his jaw, shattering his cheek and lower jawbone. The blast leaves him unconscious and grievously wounded, buried in the snow. His Finnish comrades, counterattacking and retaking the raw ground, find him. At first, they give him up for dead, Before them lies the body of their legend, with half his face shot away. They place him on a pile of corpses, but one soldier notices a slight twitch in a leg. The White Death, the ghost of the forest, is still alive, though barely. He is carried from the battlefield in a deep coma. The word spreads. Simo Heiha has fallen. The White Death has finally been silenced. Simo's injury is so severe that it seems impossible for him to survive. The bullet has torn away his upper jaw, most of his lower jaw, and his left cheek. He falls into a coma and does not awaken until March 13th, the very day the peace treaty ending the Winter War is signed. He learns of the war's end from a radio while recovering from his wounds. His personal war is over. Despite his fall, his legacy is already forged in ice. In less than 100 days, a single man has inflicted more confirmed casualties than many entire units. His effectiveness was not due to magic, but to an almost inhuman discipline and skill. He became a perfect predator in a perfect environment, an antibody that the Finnish organism had generated to fight the invading infection. His legend would not die with his wound. Simo did not use a telescopic sight for several practical reasons. First, in the extreme cold, glass lenses tended to fog or freeze, rendering them useless. Second, the glint of the sun off a lens could give away a sniper's position, a mistake a hunter like him would never make. Third, a telescopic sight forces the shooter to raise their head higher than with iron sights, creating a larger profile and an easier target. His choice was a testament to his pragmatic approach and his confidence in his own skill. His method for avoiding the vapor of his breath is another example of his meticulous preparation. By keeping a little snow in his mouth, he cooled the air he exhaled, drastically reducing the cloud of steam that could have betrayed him to a keen observer. Every detail, no matter how small, was calculated to maximize his lethality and his survival. He was not a soldier following a manual. He was a master of his craft, constantly improvising and adapting to his environment. The fall of the White Death, though it came at the end of the war, was a microcosm of the conflict itself. Like Finland, Simo was battered, wounded, and disfigured, but he was not destroyed. He survived against all odds, just as his nation did. His personal war, fought with a rifle and an iron will, became the most powerful metaphor for an entire people's struggle for their right to exist. The ghost had been wounded, but his spirit had become immortal. The statistics of Simo Heiha's personal carnage are as cold and precise as his shots, and they remain a world record to this day. In less than 100 days, he amassed over 505 confirmed kills with his Mosin Nagant rifle, the highest number ever recorded by a single sniper in any war. But his lethality did not stop there. Using his Suomi KP-31 submachine gun in close-quarters engagements and during counterattacks, he is credited with another 200 kills, bringing his total to over 700 enemy soldiers eliminated. All of this was accomplished by one man, in one of the most hostile environments on the planet. The fate of the defeated commander, in this case the Red Army, was a Pyrrhic victory that exposed its incompetence to the entire world. The Soviet Union eventually won the Winter War, forcing Finland to cede a significant portion of its territory, but the cost was humiliating and catastrophic. They suffered over 126,000 confirmed deaths, with some estimates putting the total casualties, killed, wounded, missing, and captured, at nearly 400,000. By comparison, tiny Finland lost only 25,000 men. The Soviet giant had taken over 3 months to subdue a nation with a smaller population than Leningrad, paying a price in blood that shocked its own leaders and international observers. For Simo Heiha, the end of the war marked the beginning of a long and painful recovery. He spent over a year in the hospital, undergoing multiple surgeries to reconstruct his jaw and face. Despite being permanently disfigured, he survived. He was promoted directly from corporal to second lieutenant by Field Marshal Mannerheim, the largest jump in rank in Finland's military history. After the war, he returned to his life as a farmer and dog breeder, living a quiet, modest life, away from the spotlight that sought to celebrate his legend. The ghost had become a man again. The most significant political and military consequence of the Winter War was indirect but monumental. The disastrous performance of the Red Army, its lack of preparation, inept leadership, and brute force tactics was observed with great interest by one man in Berlin, Adolf Hitler. The Soviet Union struggled to defeat tiny Finland, convinced Hitler that the Soviet armed forces were a Colossus with feet of clay, weak, disorganized, and vulnerable to a swift, decisive attack. This perception was a crucial and decisive factor in his decision to launch Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union in 1941, a miscalculation that would ultimately seal the fate of the Third Reich. For Finland, Simo Häyhä became the personification of sisu, a difficult-to-translate Finnish concept that encompasses a mix of stoic courage, determination, resilience, and iron will in the Aokiwi face of overwhelming odds. His story, that of a simple farmer who stands up to the might of an empire and inflicts disproportionate damage, became a foundational myth of modern Finnish national identity. He represents the nation's ability to resist and survive despite being caught between much larger powers. Simo is not just a war hero, he is a national icon. In the world of military tactics, Simo Häyhä became the gold standard by which all snipers are measured. His legend is studied in military schools around the world, not just for his incredible marksmanship, but for his mastery of the art of camouflage, patience, and psychological warfare. He proved conclusively that a single individual with the right skills and in the right terrain can become a strategic force capable of demoralizing and paralyzing much larger enemy units. His story is the ultimate proof that in war, the man remains more important than the machine. Simo Häyhä's legacy is also a powerful reminder of the nature of war and heroism. He was not a bloodthirsty killer, but a man doing his duty in the most effective way possible. His quietness and humility after the war stand in stark contrast to the terrifying legend he created. He never boasted of his achievements and rarely spoke of his experiences. His life after the war was a testament to his character, a man who did what had to be done to defend his home and then returned to it, letting his actions speak for themselves. A true, silent hero. But the final, unforgettable detail, the one that truly defines the man behind the myth, did not happen on the battlefield, but many years later. Simo Häyhä survived his devastating wound, though with a permanently disfigured face, and lived a long and peaceful life, passing away in 2002 at the age of 96. Throughout his life, he was often asked about his experiences and the secret to his success as the deadliest sniper the world has ever known. His answer was always laconic, devoid of any hint of boasting or self-satisfaction. On one such occasion, a journalist searching for a profound answer about strategy, psychology, or courage asked him directly, "How did you become such a good shooter?" Simo, the man who had become a terrifying legend, the ghost who had hunted over 700 men in the frozen darkness, looked at him calmly. And with the unshakable humility of a farmer talking about his harvest, he gave a one-word answer that explains it all: practice.